The headlines don't mention it, the cameras rarely show it, but behind closed doors and beyond the news cycle, the battle for Africa is already underway. It's not a war of nations, at least not in the traditional sense. There are no declared invasions, no global resolutions, no speeches at the United Nations, but there are drones, there are mercenaries, and there are billions of dollars in resource contracts being signed, stolen, or fought over every day. Africa isn't the periphery of world power anymore, it's the prize. And the powers fighting for it aren't just foreign governments. They're cartels of capital, networks of influence, and shadow military units backed by the most powerful players on Earth. In this episode of the Watchtower Report, we go behind the silence, into the mineral fields of the Congo, the battle zones of the Sahel, the ghost ports of East Africa, to expose the real story, a continent on the edge of transformation, and the global powers trying to shape it in their image. This is the Watchtower Report, where strategy meets reality. Why Africa? The resource jackpot, no one can ignore Africa, holds more than a third of the world's mineral wealth. But it's not just the abundance, it's the timing. As the world transitions to electric vehicles, AI infrastructure, and renewable energy systems, demand for rare earths, cobalt, lithium, gold, uranium, and copper has exploded, and Africa has them all. The Democratic Republic of Congo alone holds over 70% of global cobalt reserves, used in everything from smartphones to guided missiles. Zimbabwe is loaded with lithium. South Africa sits on uranium and platinum. Sudan's ground is soaked with oil and gold. And Angola, Nigeria, and Algeria remain pillars of the global energy system. But beyond what's in the ground, there's something even more strategic: people. By 2050, Africa's population will hit 2.5 billion, nearly a quarter of humanity. That means markets, labor, military potential, cultural sway. The continent isn't rising, it's accelerating. And the question is no longer if global powers will try to control it, it's how. China, the US, and the shadow games of influence. China's footprint in Africa is visible from orbit. Massive railways, new highways, deep-sea ports, smart cities, billions in loans and infrastructure, all under the Belt and Road Initiative. But these projects aren't gifts, they're leverage. From Kenya to Ethiopia, nations owe billions to Beijing. If they default, China can demand equity, land, or strategic assets, like ports and mining rights. Debt becomes diplomacy, and diplomacy becomes dependence. Then there's the United States. Officially, its mission in Africa is counterterrorism. But under AFRICOM, Washington has established dozens of cooperative outposts, drone bases, and rapid deployment hubs across the continent. From Djibouti to Niger, Somalia to Ghana, American presence isn't disappearing, it's shifting. Less about boots on the ground, more about eyes in the sky, and control of airspace, logistics, and supply chains. Meanwhile, Russia has returned in a different form. Private military contractors like Wagner and its successors have embedded themselves in unstable regimes across the Sahel. They offer security to coup governments. In exchange, they gain access to gold, diamonds, and rare earth mines. In Mali, in the Central African Republic, in Burkina Faso. Russia's presence isn't official, but it's effective. France, once the dominant colonial power, is being pushed out. Bases are closing. Convoys are attacked. In some cities, anti-French protests feature Russian flags. The world is redividing Africa, not with maps, but with money, weapons, and influence. The coup belt and the collapse of the old order. A new line has emerged across the continent, a belt of military coups stretching from Guinea to Sudan. In just 3 years, over half a dozen governments have been overthrown, and in nearly every case, the pattern is familiar. Civilians protest. The military intervenes. Western allies are expelled. Russia, or sometimes China, steps in. These juntas don't speak the language of liberal democracy. They speak the language of sovereignty, of anti-colonialism, of resource nationalism. And to many citizens, they sound more honest than the IMF-backed regimes they replaced. But the danger is deeper than ideology. In these coup zones, resource contracts are being rewritten. Chinese, Russian, Emirati, and Turkish firms are moving fast, signing deals for gold, oil, lithium. This isn't just a collapse of political order. It's a corporate land rush fueled by geopolitical chaos. The fragile powder kegs, waiting to explode beyond the coups, Africa is a patchwork of flashpoints. In Sudan, two rival generals are tearing the country apart, while Egypt, the UAE, and Russia back opposite sides. The war has displaced millions and threatens to ignite the entire Horn of Africa. In Mozambique, an ISIS-linked insurgency controls parts of a gas-rich province. International energy companies, backed by private military forces, are trying to keep operations alive. In Congo, Chinese mines are under assault by local militias. The region is flush with cobalt, gold, and copper, but plagued by instability. These aren't isolated incidents. They're the front lines of a global extraction war, one that's only growing more dangerous as AI, drones, and autonomous weapons enter the battlefield. Africa isn't just being mined, it's being tested. Will Africa control its future or be controlled again? Here's the deeper question. Is Africa rising as a power or just being recaptured by new empires? The BRICS alliance offers one path. With South Africa already a member and dozens of African nations expressing interest, there's a chance for a new financial architecture. One that doesn't depend on the IMF. One that avoids dollar domination. One that puts African interests, at least in theory, at the center. But unity is elusive. Corruption is persistent, and foreign powers are experts at divide and rule. Africa has the leverage, it has the resources, and it has the momentum. But the war for the 21st century is already on its soil, and whether it wins or loses that war may shape the future of the global order. They say the future belongs to Africa, but whose version of the future? One shaped by African hands or by foreign interests in African masks? The battles playing out now, on desert roads, in mining corridors, and in silent boardrooms, aren't about charity. They're about control, they're about access, they're about power, and they're only getting started. This has been the Watchtower Report, where strategy meets reality. Subscribe for more. Share this if you believe the war behind the headlines deserves to be seen. And as always, we'll be watching.